Excellent. Well, we've reached 2 o'clock, so I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is how to deal with managing seasonal peaks, which I think is certainly some clever ideas we're going to have for you. And I think is very appropriate now as we go into the busy period for many people of the year. Christmas for a lot of people is an increase in contact volumes, as is the new year, as is the tax year. And if you work in, say, education, we've probably just got past that peak, and you're just in a position now to start planning for the next one. So, well, delighted to welcome our speakers to you today. Delighted to welcome back Christopher Brooks from Clientship. Christopher's spoken a number of our webinars and has been very entertaining throughout. So, welcome back, Christopher.
Thank you, John. It's a really interesting topic, very topical. So really looking forward to hearing everyone else's views on this as well.
Excellent. I'm sure there's going to be some clever ideas there. Also, we're going to get some clever ideas from Katie Stabler from Cultivate. Welcome back, Katie.
Thank you so much for inviting me back.
And you've got some very clever ideas to share with everyone today.
Yeah, I hope everyone else shares that opinion.
Excellent. And we're also delighted for his first webinar with us, Nikhil Shorji from InfoBip. If people aren't familiar with InfoBip, do you want to just do a quick overview of yourself and the company?
Of course. Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy that this is my first time. Hopefully, I'll be here a couple of times down in the future. So yeah, I run InfoBip's European operations, and we're basically a communications company who are able to get the right message to the right people at the right time across all channels. So yeah, that's us.
Well, wonderful. I was talking about getting the right message to the right people at the right time. Some of the clever ideas we're talking about today, you'll probably want to share with your management team. So here we are, callcenterhelper.com recorded webinars. If you want to show them the replay of today's webinar, that'll be available about an hour after the webinar has finished. Just a reminder that we're carrying on the discussion today in our chat room. Very easy to log into it. We've got about 30 people logged in already. Here's the address, callcenterhelper.com/chat. Or if you find it easier, you can just use this little shortcode, cch.chat, which you can just type into the little browser on your phone. That will direct you to the chat room. So I know some people, it's two separate windows, one for the webinar and one for the chat room. So if you've got two screens, you can certainly have the two screens side by side, or you can have the webinar on one side and the chat room on your mobile phone, which is very very convenient. Once you're in the chat room, if you could log in and say hello to us, that'd be great. And also, if you want to get hold of the webinar slides, or if you'd like to connect with our speakers, here's the link, download webinar slides, top link, and you can get everyone's slides there. You can also connect on LinkedIn to Christopher, Katie, or to Nikhil, who I'm sure would be delighted to join you there. We're going to have a quiz after Katie's presentation, test your knowledge. And it's multi-choice, and the answers are either A, B, C, or D. But you have to vote. You have to press these individual buttons here if you want to vote on the quiz. Added advantage also being in the chat room, as well as joining the discussion, talking with your peers, is you can ask questions of our panelists, who would be very happy to answer them. Just use #question, so we know if it's a question. And there's also a bottle of champagne, box of chocolates, or an Amazon gift card, if you prefer, for the winning tip. Or if you prefer, we can also make a charitable donation of a similar amount. I know that's been very popular overall. So that's in the chat room, and the address, as ever, cch.chat. We've got quite a number of people just joined the chat room now. So I'm just going to put up a poll, and I'm just going to ask the question, since we're looking at peak volumes, how confident are you that your contact center could cope with a significant increase in contact volumes? Are you very confident? Are you somewhat confident? Are you unsure? Are you not confident, and you think, oh, there's no chance that we can deal with that? So if you'd just like to vote on the poll now, it'd be quite fascinating to see what comes up. Christopher, do you think there's going to be a lot of confident and very confidence?
Well, it shouldn't be the first time it's happened, should it? If these are kind of seasonalities, there should be things we've seen before. So hopefully what we'll see are the responses to people who have planned on the back of what's happened before. So I have confidence, we will have confidence, we can cope.
Okay, well, let's have a look at what the results show. And yeah, it's like a bit of an even split here. 48% are confident, 2% are very confident, and quite a number unsure in the middle. And then we've got a number of people who are not confident or says no chance. So certainly, hopefully there's some clever ideas from for everyone that we can handle there. So, okay, sounds like a good chance now to share some of our clever ideas. And Christopher, if you could perhaps put your results up and put your slides up on the screen, and we can go through your ideas.
Sure. We all good?
We are.
Excellent. What I did see in that, John, was quite worryingly, only 2% of people said they were very confident. And if you think about walking into the financial director or the head of operations and they were to pose that question to you, how confident are you we'll cope with this season's demand? And only 1 in 50 can say, I'm very, very confident. That would suggest that, you know, despite this being a very regular occurrence, it's something we all need to just think a bit more about how we plan for. So I'm going to share with you 3 ideas. Now, we've got the very cool guys from Infobip here who are going to talk about technology in this space. So, but I'm not going to go into that area. And we've got the wonderful Katie Stabler, who, in terms of when it comes to recovery, there is no one in the business who's better than that. So I'll leave that to her space. So I'm going to talk about some just different ideas. And these are things I've kind of collected, tried, experimented with over the years, working with different organizations in different parts of the world. So apologies if it doesn't translate perfectly for every industry. But if you take the intent and the spirit from it, then hopefully there'll be something in there that could be of interest. But the image on the right, let's not forget this. Whilst we're talking about the demand, helping cope with the demand that will increase on behalf of our customers, let's not forget the other side of the phone call, the other side of the chat is an agent who's sitting there, who is stressed, whose well-being is impacted. So we have a duty here to help our colleagues as much as we do to service our customers. And always kind of bear that in mind when we're thinking about developing an improved experience for them. So the first one I would say is listen early. Okay, now we do know, unless we've started yesterday, some of these peaks are going to come. And if we don't, sitting around in the data sets we have is the intelligence to tell us that we're likely to see peaks, because we can start to root through the voice of the customer, the chats that are recorded in things like salesforce.com, in the commentary that's been captured on customer service tickets. And what we'll start to find in there is evidence. It's no different to us seeing the John Lewis ad way before Christmas comes. It's an early alert for us that Christmas is on its way. And so it will appear in our conversations that customers are having with us. How long will it take for that product to get to me? Will it get to me for Christmas? Can I check if I'm booking in to come and see the university? Will I have had to have had my UCAS allocation first? These are sorts of pieces of information that will hang around. And if we listen and pull them together and aggregate them, we can start to identify, hey, this peak starts 2 months out, 6 weeks out, 3 months out, and we can start to see when we need to plan for it. So really, there's no excuse. We don't have to wait until we get the call center register showing us that we've got way too many calls for the number of agents we've actually got to take the calls. We can see this way before. So spend some time looking at it. Now, that does lead us to one problem. Working with an organization at the moment who are using a piece of kit called Solonis, which does data mining to look at accuracy on data. And what we're finding is sometimes as little as 8% of data captured is accurate. So if you're looking to do this, and you haven't actually helped your agents to understand the importance, or the sales team, the importance of capturing the right data, the challenge is that all of a sudden your demand plan is going to be out. So really data integrity sits at the heart of this one, but it's possible. Good quality data can help you so much more. So that's the first thought. The second thought is actually talking about those agents. Now, we quite often talk about our agents as our great kind of the front line to our customers. They're the ones who are there, who are hearing what the issues are, who are fulfilling the orders, making the experience what it is, getting the good scores in terms of satisfaction. But actually, what about if you took them away from the phones? And what if you were to bring them together and say, hey, let's talk about what happens when we have peaks and how we manage them? What workarounds do we use? What can we elevate to become systematic improvements? And you can use a technique. This is just one called Lotus Blossom, which is a very basic ideation technique. But think about how empowering it is for our colleagues if we actually say, what we'd like to hear is your ideas on how we could improve this. Now, if they sit around and they come up with 8 different things that could be worked on, each one of those 8 then gets 8 different ways in which you can develop a new idea for it. And if you take groups of agents to work on particular initiatives, you can start to find very quickly you've got lots of alternative ideas for developing improvements right there in front of you. So think about how empowering that is for them, and think about what a wonderful insight and intelligence pool you can get to build improvements to support you during peak times. So really think about off-peak as the perfect time to plan for peak. And I'll give you a very good example, a real example from this. We're working with a pharmaceutical company who just were working with the data, listening to the data to try and understand why they were getting so many calls from customers who were saying, it's painful waiting to get my order fulfilled in the pharmacist. So the response from the experience team was, we need more people. We need more people in the pharmacies behind the tills to be serving customers. So that was what was accelerated, cost of training, cost of bringing pharmacists in. What happened was the satisfaction didn't go up. The reason the satisfaction didn't go up because people didn't trust that the actual pharmacy orders could be produced that quickly. Hang on, this is too quick now. And what it took was a group of agents sitting around and just talking and saying, why do you think pain means it takes too long? No, pain relates to the seating. The chairs are uncomfortable. The cushions are uncomfortable. People find it physically painful to sit and wait for their order. They don't want it to be any quicker. And that's the power of just actually taking the agents, and they'd listen to the conversations. They could hear the issues. So a cushion is a much cheaper investment than actually headcount to improve and eradicate that particular pain point. So it really is about understanding and listening and working with our colleagues to hear what they say. The third point is a concept called the nursery. Now, we work on the assumption that when our customers come into our world, they're going to know how it works. I mean, we know, talking to our colleagues quite often, we don't know how it works. Processes aren't documented. They just live in people's heads, and it gets assumed it's just how we do things around here. So imagine what that's like for a customer who's dealing with hundreds of other different organizations who do things in very, very different ways. But if you were to turn it around and think to yourself, let's treat it like a nursery. If we treat it like a school ground environment where we're helping to educate children and help them understand the barriers, the grounds for which they can conduct, the controls that are important, if we bestow that understanding to our customers, we can provide them the right information to make sure that they then don't find themselves having to call us all the time or make contact. So much of that demand, we can actually box off and say we've taken care of that. So as they become better informed and more engaged with us, we should provide greater insights to them in manageable and meaningful ways so that they get to the point where they're fully active, they're very happy with how everything operates, and they start to self-manage. And this is where, I'm sure Nico will come onto this in terms of omnichannel, it becomes effortless because actually they know what to do, they know how to deal with us. Now, some organizations are very, very good at this and some are less so. And here's a couple of examples. So I just went online and had a look at the world of telco and decided to contact the organizations and say, when should I call you? Inspired by your piece, Chauncey, and the Citizens Advice Bureau that we've been talking about. When should I call you? Now, actually, Sky will say, let me tell you, the best times to call, the quietest times between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. So actually we inform our customers, these are the right times to call us, which is no different to when you get to a train and you look and you see this carriage is busy, this carriage is green. You invariably walk to the green one. And that's exactly human nature here. I will call up when I know it's less busy. I don't want to sit on the phone. O2, they're advised to avoid first thing in the morning, lunchtimes and afternoons, a bit more general. However, some organizations, and there's 4 there, you can read who they are, won't actually give customers that information. They won't help their customers understand when the best time is to call, or actually refuse to tell them. Whereas if you take someone like Amazon to manage that, what they will do is if you go to one of their fulfillment centers, you'll find banks and banks of packing desks which are empty. And if you ask, why are they empty? Today they are empty, but tomorrow they will be full because tomorrow we have peak. So the peaks of today become the everyday of tomorrow. And they manage that into the process that we don't have to suffer it as customers. But actually, as you can see there from Sky and O2, you can help your customers understand when is a good time to make contact and what sort of things we could be making contact about. So there's many different ways in which we can engage our customers and help our customers understand we have peaks and we don't want you to suffer the peaks unnecessarily. Thank you, Jonty.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much indeed for that. Just put up the slides here, and just wonder if everyone could say in the chat room what did they like best about Christopher's presentation. There was certainly some good bits in there. Capture the early alerts. You don't have to wait for the peak to plan for it. So capture the evidence early on. That it's probably there. Use your quiet periods to plan for the busy periods. I think that's certainly a particularly good piece of advice there. Don't assume your customers know how things work, and a very good way to do that is to do welcome calls during your quiet periods to your customers and explain them through the details. We will be publishing an article on that fairly soon, and publish the times when your contact center is quietest. The Citizen Advice Bureau locally advise that if you need to contact a business like utility or somewhere you're having difficulty getting through, then to call them almost the very moment the contact center opens. So if it opens at 8 o'clock, call them 8:01, and you'll be sort of very early on in the queue. Though it looks like O2 advising you not to. But again, if you have quiet periods, very easy to just put that piece on your website. Obviously, if it's busy all the time, but even then, there are probably times when the queue is slightly shorter. So you can do that. So some very good, great feedback. We're just going to jump across to the chat room and have a look at some of the questions and tips that have come through. So Elle has said, train to the next event rather than burdening seasonal agents with all the training data up front and overwhelming them. So I guess that's if you've got a series of events during the year, just train for that next one. Give them the basics and let them become confident so that they can do their job. And then train them additionally on all of the peak events that will come their way. So I think that's a very good one there. Christopher, training quite key.
Absolutely. I really do like that idea of actually boxing off the event and training for the peak events. Share, we can share information, let the agents hear the anxiety in the customer's voice, recognize how would you deal with that? Because quite often it's not necessarily the issue, as we know, it's the challenge. It's demonstrating empathy for understanding how important it is that piggy figurine won't be arriving for a son's birthday. It's really empathizing with that side of things rather than the fact that the figurine's going to arrive or not. So I think absolutely getting kind of that empathy training. I think it's a really good point as well. We can overwhelm agents if we say, look what the next 12 months looks like. It's hideous. Whereas actually we can break it down with we work good with agile, we work good with short sprints. So let's feed our agents in that way to help them manage and become confident. I did that one. On to the next one, on to the next one. Excellent.
Well, on to the next one. Here's a tip from Mateusz, who says, prepare yourself way in advance. I think, Katie, this is quite a good tip. For example, we started our preparation for our February peak already in August. It included good skilling and recruitment strategies, and you'll see a peak is nothing scary if you plan for in advance. I think that's great advice, Katie.
That is great advice. And I think actually one of the things I enjoyed most about what you were just saying, Christopher, was using that off peak to plan for when it is a peak time. And I believe that's pretty much what this tip is also saying. We are always living in the moment. We're always working at 100 miles an hour. Sometimes we neglect that foresight to use our time in the best way possible. So the whole preparation piece for me is just like music to my ears.
We've got a comment from, or a tip from Raluca, Nikhil, who says, keep your staff happy, especially during peak times, so that they will keep your customers happy. There is a danger, I guess, Nikhil, that we tend to use the quiet times to keep our staff happy. And when it's all hands to the pump, we kind of go, oh, we're too busy to do that. What's your thoughts on that, Nikhil?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that affects all industries, and I think it's especially key to have the right technology. And when I say the right, it's the correct technology to kind of move between the peaks and the off peaks, so that you can balance it out, so that you're utilizing the quiet time to communicate and build the demand for the peak seasons, and then during the peaks you're kind of taking care of it when the peaks do come around the corner.
We've got a tip in by Tom. It's important to act rather than react. Staff need not only to be in place by the beginning of your busy period, they need to be competent and prepared for handling high volumes, which I think matches in with what Christopher has said. Barry said you can't rely on other departments to realize the implications of their actions. Regularly explain your strategy so that they can help planning for peak times. I guess, Katie, there's a real big danger that the contact center is often the sticking plaster for, if you like, the ills of the rest of the organization. One can't help but thinking that, for instance, there's a couple of ones that the marketing department seem particularly guilty for putting things out without necessarily other people thinking, but it can be all sorts of other actions, from billing mistakes or unclear communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is that age-old problem to tackle of communication and working with synergy rather than in silos. I actually found that a great technique for avoiding that is to journey map the process and blueprint it, so that you can very easily and very visually connect all of the different departments that are working together, and more importantly, the impact that they all have on each other.
Indeed. Well, it seems like probably a good time now to, we're going to do a quick poll, because we're going to look at seasonal parts. And what I'd like to do is just ask the question of, for dealing with new periods, how quickly can a new agent become, say, 80% proficient in your organization? From the date a new agent walks in the door and goes through their induction training, how long is it before you'd say they're 80% proficient? Is it up to 1 week? Is it up to 2 weeks? Is it up to 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, which is roughly about 3 months? Is it 24 weeks or 6 months? Or is it longer than that? How long roughly would you say in your organization it takes for an agent to be proficient? So we're just to go back to, I think we've got a couple more votes to come in there. I'm just going to share the results here. This is a sample size of 90 people. So it looks like the very shortest is 2 weeks, which I think that must be a very transactional type process. But it looks like the most typical one here is 3 months, Katie, with quite a reasonable percentage, about 15%. It's taking 6 months or longer to bring someone to 80% proficiency. That's quite a long period.
It is indeed. I'd be interested to know how complex a role that involves, and also what attrition rates are like, because if you take that long and then you have attrition that is also high, then that's going to be an issue to manage.
And certainly in the current situation, it probably is absolutely critical to hang on to to hang on to your staff. Right, Katie, that's probably a good chance to drop across and for you to share your clever ideas. So if you'd like to pop your slides up on the screen there.
There we go. Hopefully you are seeing slides.
Excellent, yes.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to cover 3 areas here. We're going to talk about pandemic paralysis, beating your customers, and frontline frontiers. So someone has to say it. I'm going to say it. Let's start with the pandemic and the pandemic paralysis. To me, what that term means is when your business has been quite heavily impacted by the pandemic, even to the point where things have had to stop. Now, over the course of the last 18 months, of course, so many organisations have been negatively impacted by the pandemic, and lots really severely so. Even today, as we're in the process of rebuilding, businesses are still impacted. We consistently hear about supply chain shortages, shipping delays. Customer behaviour has changed, which makes it harder for us to make business decisions because assumptions or knowledge that we once had are simply no longer in existence. So it is undoubtedly a case that pandemic paralysis is still a thing. But, and this is perhaps a controversial view, there's one area in which I don't believe that this should still be a pain factor, and that's when we're coming down to customer service and customer experience. At this time, we shouldn't be hearing IVR messages or seeing chat responses to the effect of, due to the pandemic, we are experiencing longer delays than usual. It is absolutely the case that with furlough, with redundancies, with remote working, our processes and practices have been impacted, and as such our employees have been impacted. So I'm not saying that the pains of this still don't exist, because they very much do. I was in a conversation just this week around how employee satisfaction, trust and engagement is still quite low due to the results of the pandemic and the way in which we're trying to recoup the circumstance. But what I am trying to say is, even if those factors do exist, your customers shouldn't feel that as an excuse. That shouldn't be the reason. So the capacity to meet the demand of your customers' needs to be smartly managed through the way that Christopher has talked about and what Nikhil, I'm sure, will mention shortly. But any lingering impacts of the pandemic, it just can't be used as a fallback excuse. That temptation needs to be heavily avoided. So let me give you a personal example, a very, very painful example, actually, of when this happened to me. So I've just returned from a honeymoon and we stayed in a sandals resort. And given the couple of years that we've had and the risks and uncertainty that are still very much present when it comes to travel, we just wanted to go to a place, a brand that we had heard was synonymous for a great experience. We haven't stayed there before, but we intrinsically trusted it. Now, the venue was lovely, the location was beautiful, the sun was hot, the cocktails were delicious. All of that was overcast by the fact that the hotel was full, but they didn't have the right staffing level. So their capacity to manage the level of hotel guests that they had just wasn't there. And as a result, it really did produce a quite terrible customer experience, and one that absolutely did not meet my expectations or even needs. And their initial informal response was that they're still finding their feet after the pandemic. And, we're all in this together. We can empathize with that. And especially the travel industry, who've been so significantly hit, we can understand that. But on the flip side, I'm a paying customer who expects a certain level of service. And to hear an excuse, which in my eyes, that feels like it isn't good enough. So as such, one of the biggest things that I would implore throughout this is that even if you are experiencing niggles or inability to manage demand, don't use the pandemic as an excuse. This time has moved on. So next up, we're going to talk about beating your customers. I am not talking about physically attacking your customers unless you're working in a very niche area, in which case, tell me about it on LinkedIn. What I'm talking about is navigating increased demand by utilizing the data to preempt your customer's next move and being able to prepare for it. So this very much resonates with what Christopher's already been talking about. let me give you a tangible example of how you can do just that. So let's say you're perhaps running a seasonal promotion on a new product or a new service. It's likely that despite very cleverly planned communication that you share with customers, they will still have questions. So journey map this new promotion. Step into your customer's shoes and try and address the questions that they may have before they even formulate as a question in your customer's mind. Make sure things like your knowledge base, your FAQ page, your chatbot, your virtual agents, make sure they're all updated with any new information and the answers to these potential questions that might come up. The whole point of this is that you will have customers who are able to self-serve themselves. So enable them to do so and don't put barriers in the way. Make sure those who can self-serve can do so capably. Another example is, let's say you're in the service or a service sector or utility supplier. You may expect a peak demand over a particular issue that's common at a certain time of the year. Why not train a dedicated team or a group of agents to specifically direct customers to who are facing that issue? This way, you can update all of your contact information so that your customers know exactly who to contact and how. Customers then get a very expert and proficient agent on the end of the phone who's dedicated to be able to deal with that particular issue. And then that enables and frees up the rest of your general population of agents to deal with the more BAU kind of questions. So beating your customers to meet their needs before they even recognize them as a need is a really great way to offer a proactive customer experience, and it frees up your capacity. But you can only really do this if you have an exceptional understanding of both your business, so the times of when your peaks are going to exist and why they are generated, but also a really good understanding of your customers. So very much like Chris was saying again, use that data and make sure it is accurate. Make sure that you're designing your service and your time management around the information that you know, because you do know it, you've just got to utilize it. And then finally, Frontline Frontiers. So this is all about empowering your frontline staff. So if you do experience seasonal peaks and for whatever reason you don't quite manage to manage those as effectively as you planned for, nothing can soothe an irked customer better than a truly wonderful agent who is simply brilliant at making the customer feel cared for. On the flip side, there is no better way to provoke a customer's amygdala into the irrational fury than a lackluster, ineffective voice at the other end of the line. So, I mean, Chris mentioned at the beginning, I love talking about customer experience recovery because it doesn't matter how perfectly we plan for things, things do go wrong. So if you are in a position where you aren't able to demand any spikes that you potentially didn't anticipate correctly, your fail-safe are your agents, and there's actually no better way to demonstrate excellent customer experience than recovering a potentially negative experience. So make sure you are prepared for seasonal spikes by hiring great people. Make sure your recruitment process considers new hires who simply champion customer experience, who display empathetic characteristics, and who want to be there. Basically, it really helps. And then once you have the right people, equip them. So train them, make sure that they feel incredibly educated over the product and service and how everything works, and that they are prepared to manage the expected and the unexpected, and give them the tools that they need to be able to do a great job. I've worked in organizations where there's been ineffective, pretty crappy CRMs with 1 million pages and screens that are just all over the place. And it is not conducive to a happy agent, which subsequently isn't conducive to a good customer experience. So make sure they're educated and equipped to do the job well. And then right at the beginning of this slide, empower them. So you've got to be able to trust your people. There's nothing as rewarding than just showing your agents or your staff that actually you really trust them to do the job. So if you do have a frustrated customer for whatever reason, or an unhappy customer, here is the perfect opportunity to salvage that experience. And you can only do that with a team who are totally trusted, fully empowered to do what's right for the customer, to maybe think outside of the box, and more importantly, not be inhibited by processes. So it is crucial just to create that frontline frontier to be your fail-safe, just in case. And that is me.
Oh, you're on mute, Jonty.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Katie. Some fantastic bits of advice there. We're now just going to jump across to to do a quiz. We're going to be doing that in a couple of minutes' time. If you're not logged into the chat room, and in fact most of the audience aren't logged into the chat room, now is the time to do it, because that's where the quiz is going to be. Just go to your browser and type in cch.chat, or if you like doing it the long way, callcenterhelper.com/chat, and then we'll be doing some voting. Here are the buttons here at the bottom of your screen, A, B, C, or D. It's multi-choice. While you're doing that, I'd just like to ask what you like best about Katie's presentation. There were some great ones that bits of advice there. Certainly the IVR messages of "we are experiencing longer than usual delays" is no longer an excuse. So if you've got that on your IVR message today, first of all, dial in and check if you have it. And if you do, you probably need to replace that with something else. For instance, a message on your website saying when it is quieter. Secondly, make sure your knowledge base is regularly updated with the new knowledge from today's problems. So you've got that intelligence coming through. There's problems coming through today. Are you taking today's problems and updating those into your knowledge base at the end of the day? That's certainly a key thing. I know there's a curation process you've got to go, and quality and so on. Quite important. Customer service recovery, which I think is one of Katie's specialities, is all about a friendly and helpful agent who can champion the customer experience and then trust your people. There's a great article that the late Paul Cooper, good friend of mine, wrote a number of years ago, saying it's not empowerment unless you trust your people. And I think that's where the problem, where empowerment goes. So I'll see if I can dig out that link, and if we can't find it very quickly in the chat room, we'll see if we can certainly put that out on my LinkedIn post. That was a great favorite article of mine. So wonderful, thank you very much for that, Katie. Right, we're going to jump across to the quiz now, and so we've got what, about 50 people, just under half the audience logged into the chat room, so there's still time. Just type in callcenterhelper.com/chat. So first question, true or false? 96% of consumers will leave a brand due to poor customer service. So if you think it's true, press the blue A button, or B, the pink false button. So true or false? 96% of consumers will leave a brand due to poor service. Just wait for a few more votes to come through there. I think a number of people still logging in. So here we are. Actually, most of you got that right. The answer is correct. According to a 2020 Shahaiken report, 96% of customers will leave you for bad service. He also found that 62% of customers are willing to pay more for good service and even more for convenience. So next question is, which term is not commonly used for leaving customers? Is it A, customer attrition, B, customer churn, C, customer erosion, or D, customer turnover? Which one is not commonly used for losing customers? A, customer attrition, B, customer churn, C, customer erosion, or D, customer turnover? So results coming through there, and so the answer again, we've got a very switched on audience today. Yeah, most of you got right. Customer erosion is one of the ones that's not commonly used for learning customers, so maybe that's a term that we need to champion. There are many terms for using customers, but the most common one for keeping hold of them is customer retention. This is much easier when holding their hand through the first steps of their experience, which I think is one of the things that Christopher advocated then. So what percentage of contact centers know their customers' lifetime value? Is it A, 15%, B, 30%, C, 45%, or D, 60%? What percentage of contact centers know their customers' lifetime value? Very useful metric if you have not done that. Very good one to go to the board with if you're building a business case of if you're losing customers, is to know how much a customer is worth to the business. So actually, most of you got it wrong. The actual correct answer is 15%. We did a survey of asking people what their customer lifetime value was of their customers, and only 15% could answer the question. So there's certainly some homework there for anyone in the audience. If you don't know your customer's lifetime value, now is the time to go and work it out. It's a very, very good way for a business case. Okay, last question we've got coming through. And which philosopher is often credited with the quote, "The beginning is often the most important part of the work"? Was it A, Aristotle, B, Plato, C, Pythagoras, or D, Socrates? A, Aristotle, B, Plato, C, Pythagoras, or D, Socrates? So just like to vote on there. Which one do you think it was? I think we, if I'm not mistaken, I think they are all Greek. No, I think Plato might have been Roman. So let's have a look at this. And I'm not sure Pythagoras was a philosopher, but certainly did some very good mathematics work. The right answer was not Socrates, as most of you guessed. It was actually Plato. Another great Plato quote aligns very well with workplace: "Better a little which is done well, rather than a great deal imperfectly." So certainly very good. So who's won that? Brandon has come top, just squeezing ahead at the last moment, ahead of Mateusz there. So we'll be in touch to award your prize there. So let's go and have a look at what's coming through in the chat room, and some of the top tips and questions. Veronica said, I think this was a question about how long it takes to build up an advisor. Very complex training in our organization, no IVR system, we handle it all, which is telecommunications industry. New hire training program is about 3 months, and we find it does take about a full year for them to feel confident and rate consistently high in all areas. And we'll take one more tip, which is from Faith. Invest in good solutions provider for your contact center IVR. Add queue average wait times, mention how many callers are ahead of them as they enter the queue, and repeat an update announcement while they're waiting on hold. Certainly seems, Nikhil, to aim with some of the technology I think you're going to be talking about later. Hold announcements are also a good avenue to mention valuable reminders, like common FAQs, and other help channels are available on your website, like an online community or updated help site. Within the queue system, you can also have a system to offer having the customer leave a voice message or queuing them for automatic callbacks. So some great guidance. So I think that probably dovetails very nicely, Nikhil, into your thoughts. So perhaps if Nikhil, you put your slides up and take us through some of the thoughts on how technology can help with peak periods. And I think you're going to be touching specifically on Black Friday. I think Nikhil's on mute. Nikhil, can we hear you? I think we're having problems with Nikhil. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back into the. You there, Nikhil?
Can you hear me, Jonty?
Yeah. You can now, yes.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. So much for technology. But hey, thanks, Jonty. Yeah, I mean, scary or not, seasonal peaks are daunting and definitely, resource intensive. It's something that both customers and brands really look forward to. And, as Katie mentioned, having a lackluster customer experience during peaks or even off peaks is probably the worst experience one can actually have. So to make sure that you're prepared for it, as Chris mentioned, it's very important to get the information and the research done before the peak so that you're able to plan and prepare for it. The correct use of technology actually brings this all together. and allows you to balance out what needs to be done prior to peaks, during peaks, and after peaks. And I think this is also important to make sure that customers come back and build that loyalty, with the customers. Look, peaks are good. Marketing departments work for it. They want to make sure that the demand is increased, and then it's left up to the operations to make sure that we can handle all of this. Katie did touch upon this. Customer mapping is really important. It's no longer as linear as it used to be. This is something that needs to be looked at and to understand the entire life cycle of the consumer, phase by phase, right from the first time they actually visit to the time they make a purchase, and then beyond, so that you can make them a loyal customer. One of the most important points here is to identify where along this journey there is a risk of the customer dropping. And this is something that using technology is very, very easy to map out and to see. And then you can get your teams to train, you can get your teams to identify and work on building up the resources around those touch points, so that not only do the customers not drop off, but it's very easy to re-engage the customer if a drop off does take place. And this is actually taken a step further by personalizing things, which with technology it's quite easy to do today with all the CRM tools and systems. Even though they get quite complicated and complex sometimes, the end result is actually quite good. And that personalization, that extra touch, actually gives it that extra. It shows that you're giving that extra effort to the customers, and it actually builds a long-term relationship, and it reduces the churn. It's also very important to understand the audience that you are dealing with. And for a lot of industries, the technology used is different. For a lot of demographics in the audience, the technology preference is also different. I mean, if we think about it, all of us are very comfortable with voice. We're all very happy to hear a live person at the end of the phone. It gives us that human touch. It gives us that comfort level that, okay, someone is there to be able to take care of us. But sometimes it takes us a long time to reach that voice. And this is where just scaling up the number of agents is not the answer. I mean, I'll give an experience recently, and I wish I'd read Chris's notes as to check in a call center to see when the peak times are, and then try and avoid them when I did this. But I was actually speaking to an airline, and all I had done is actually bought a revenue ticket and wanted to upgrade it using miles. But unfortunately, all options online, all options on the phone and IVR were not allowing me to do that. I had to speak to an agent. I picked up the phone and I placed a call, and after a few hours of waiting, I finally got through. Now, I had the luxury of a landline with a speakerphone, so I just left it on and let the music play. I never ever want to hear that tune again. But I finally got through. It took about 15-20 minutes. I got my job done. Now, if this was simply done through another channel, it was just a simple request. It was for something that was 3-4 weeks in the future. It wasn't urgent. That would have made my experience so much better. I was getting a really good deal. I was getting the upgrade on miles. So it made sense, and it was really worth it for me to spend those couple of hours on the phone waiting. I don't have, the white hair isn't sprouting yet, but my age does allow me to have a certain amount of patience. A lot of my friends don't have that patience. They would not have stayed on the line. And most definitely, the next generation with their need for instant gratification is not going to have that patience. So in order to take care of these peaks today, and also to take care of the future peaks, like Chris mentioned, today's peaks are tomorrow's normal, we do need to put in this technology. We do need to do channel migration and make sure that the communication to and from customers and brands is flowing, and it is also migrating across channels that customers or brands need to use. On the topic of channels, there are a lot of channels available to us. There was a survey done where 75% users prefer to use private communication channels as compared to traditional ones. Those are your OTTs. You got WhatsApp, you got Viber, you got good old SMS. Every bit of communication can use any one of these channels to start the customer journey, migrate into another channel through the customer journey, make it more rich, make it more interactive, and then finally, send an email so that it's there on the record. It's set in stone, and you can always refer to it whenever you want. So being able to migrate from the beginning to the end, and then personalize it, and then keep that communication flowing is what is a good brand experience, and it kind of ties into everything we've discussed, and it's doing it off peak then enables you to just implement it. And with technology, scalability is very easy. So if we do it off peak, we have everything set up, we can easily scale it up when the peaks do come around. One of the other easy things to put in place is chatbots. Now, there's a lot of simple bits of information that we need, that we request very often. Talking about flights again, just want to know, is a flight delayed? Going to the airport to fetch my wife. Do I need to leave now, or do I need to leave later? It's a simple query. So today, the options are available to us. We can go on an app, we can send a message, we can go online, we can pick up the phone and use the IVR. We don't need to speak to an agent. But tomorrow, if there is, let's say, a loss of baggage, and you need to take that and actually discuss what are the options, it is much more comforting. You are already in distress to then speak to an agent. So just using the right need, using chatbots to give back information. There could be simple rule-based information. Send in your PNR, poof, you get the information you need. It could also go into artificial intelligence, where you can actually go into booking systems. But just keeping it simple right now, not going all the way to a virtual assistant, right in the beginning. It's good enough. Use a chatbot, migrate and move away a lot of the high volume, quick response information onto a chatbot is a great idea to reduce the load off and on peaks. Again, peaks are a year-round experience. We do prepare and plan for some of them, but it is very important prior to peaks to, like Chris mentioned, to get all the research done. But in doing so, then to send out this communication, to send out this information to the consumers, to make sure that they are aware that these peaks are coming around the corner. And actually, technology can make life simpler for both the consumer as well as the brand and the business. So just having a simple agent screen and keeping it clean and easy and allowing them to migrate between channels is also a huge benefit, just like it is for customers to be able to migrate between channels and interact with the brand. Another interesting thing is communication has to be both proactive and reactive. This really helps the customer experience. Look, Black Friday is coming. You're able to search and find the best deal possible. You're able to get a good deal. You're able to use your credit card, and hey, guess what? You got an additional discount because you're using a particular credit card. The payment gateway goes through, easy peasy. They give you free shipping. You're really happy. You're waiting at home, and I think both my colleagues here agree to this. You're waiting for your purchase, and it doesn't come. Now, it's not the brand's fault. It's not the credit card company's fault. It's not the retailer's fault. But who are you going to catch? Who are you going to call? Who are you going to speak to? And have they informed you? So, for example, if the retailer knows that this is delayed, they just need to send an SMS out. It's just a simple one-line text saying, hey, your package is delayed. I'm sorry. We'll get to you as soon as possible. We'll keep you updated. Or if I want to find out, I just send in a message, or use WhatsApp, or use any channel that I like, and just say, hey, where is my package? Where is my parcel? Where is my purchase? And if I get that information instantly, it keeps me happy. And the brand, the retailer, the credit card company, everybody involved doesn't get, they get loyalty. The consumer feels that they've been taken care of. And I'm sure Katie and Chris both agree that this is the ultimate goal, to build that loyalty, not only during peaks like Black Friday, but before, during, and after. There are multiple examples that we've come across. We've learned a lot from our clients, across the globe. Some of them actually during events, have geolocation messages going out to actually catch not too broad an audience, but just those who are involved or near a particular store. They've been able to have like open rates of those messages of 37%, and like converted most of them, almost 95% of them. I mean, there are a lot of clients who use this to retain customers after the peak, and continues to give them the discounts and actually continue that seasonal excitement. But yeah, I think technology is great if it's used correctly, if it's put in place, and if it's scaled up in the right way at the right time. So like I said in the beginning, we strive to get the right message to the right people at the right time to the right channel. So yeah, that's it for me.
Oh, you're on mute, Jonty.
We're just going to put a poll up. It just says, would you like to see a demonstration of the Infobot solutions? So if you'd like to have a look at their solutions, whether it's dealing with personal channels like WhatsApp or Viber, I think it's quite a good piece of advice there. Chatbots can certainly help with peak periods, which is certainly a very good way of doing it. And use things like proactive notifications, like SMS messages, to avoid problems. I think could tie in very, very nicely there. Right, let's jump across to the chat room and see what's been happening in the chat room. So we've got Jenny, who said, while some peaks like Christmas are relatively easy to predict, the disruption from the pandemic has created new ones. For example, I guess Jen is in the food delivery in the food business. Demand for food delivery services dramatically increased during lockdowns, and I guess that's a challenge, because that's a peak that perhaps is not seasonal, that has happened. Christopher, any thoughts on how you deal with sort of peaks that aren't seasonal, but I suppose you can't necessarily see them coming? You can potentially, do you need to be able to react quite quickly when they do come?
I think you've got to be aware of your business environment. I think you've got to have lots of different insight sources, lots of inputs. You have every organization will have its go-to-market, it will have its business plan of what it's trying to achieve. And you need to make sure that every one of those targets, those KPIs you're working towards, you understand the factors that affect them. If you've got those lined up correctly, then the chances are any information that's going to impact the volumes or the speed, the pace that happens, you'll be aware of. Because otherwise you're talking about having a business model that's out of your control. Now, of course, you do get exceptional circumstances, but I think that's where intelligence is important. You almost need your control dashboard that says, these are the inputs that affect our overall performance. And I can watch these. I remember working with PlayStation, and it was really, really important to build a tolerance of 20% around every one of the indicators, so they didn't react, but they actually had an awareness of every single input that could affect their business performance, so that when it did come, as small as it was, they could start to identify it. And believe it or not, a Mumsnet group in Germany actually nearly, a few years ago, stopped them from doing business over the Christmas period. But they were aware to it, they were alert to it, and it was a small trend coming in. So okay, I mean, maybe that's unfair, maybe it requires a hugely sophisticated organization, but if you want to be able to predict and manage everything, then you've got to be accountable and have identification of all those sources that can input your capacity to serve your customers.
And thank you very much for that. And Katie, you talked about customer service recovery. Probably quite a good one from Barry. I think Barry's trying to win the prize here. Don't make knee-jerk decisions when things get busy. Stay calm and make decisions based on facts. Is it like that mug? Stay calm and carry on.
Totally. And I think this is perfect advice, but I would be interested to see how many people think that in the reality of this circumstance, they actually do stay calm and make decisions based on facts, because I think it is often one of those things that is easier said than done. But I totally agree with everything that Chris has just said. If you're in that position, then it enables you to be better at making decisions based on facts. And I think also, if you've got that luxury of knowing that your processes are as slick as they can be, and you're in as good of a position as you can be to handle a time which may be somewhat unexpected or difficult to manage, then again, you're in a better position to be able to do just that. But yeah, the proof's in the pudding, whether or not people actually feel that they're capable of doing that.
And if you want to learn how to stay calm when things get busy, a lot of it comes down to training. If you ever watch the emergency services or the military, both of which have very busy periods where things are certainly not calm and required leadership, it's all about training. It's all about role planning. I've been out on emergency services events where they simulate an accident. A lot of that's about training. Anyway, we've reached the top of the hour. So what did you like best about today's webinar? If you can put that into the chat room. The winning tip today comes in from Christine, who says, after a peak, while the experience is fresh, have team group workshops to discuss issues. And then this helps you make the changes and plan for the next time. So instead of going, phew, that was a busy one and let's go off and do everything else, it's like, now's the time to do the planning. If you'd like to complete the survey before you leave, you can watch the recording, be available in about an hour's time. And next week, we're going to be looking at the agent of the future. So I'd like to really enjoy today's webinar. I'd like to thank our three speakers. Christopher Brooks from Clientship. Thank you, Christopher.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Katie Stabler from Cultivate. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Nikhil Shorji from Infobit. Thank you, Nikhil.
Thanks, Jonty. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. So we're back this time next week, where we're going to be looking at the agent of the future. So hope you can all join us then. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.